Appeals meeting of the Town of Raymond. The Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order. The board does have a quorum. I'm now going to do a roll call and ask the members to state their name. Let's start with Pat. Oh, you're muted, Pat. You're muted. Yeah.
Unmute. Patricia
There you go.
Beaton.
David Murch.
Thank you, David.
Tom Hennessy.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. I thought your name was Marcia, but I see it's you. Okay.
I use her computer. That's what I do.
I know. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Introduction of a new administrative assistant recording secretary, Sandy Fredericks. Interview of applicant for member of the board, Greg Dean. Then we'll go on to new business, a public hearing for Robert Guy requesting a setback reduction, and applicant Jessica Bates looking for a conditional use and variance provisions for non-conforming use. Excuse me. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Generally speaking, appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis for your opposition. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to, because we're on Zoom, just state their name and address and your affiliation with the application, whether you're for, opposed, or neutral. All persons speaking shall address all remarks or questions to the chairman. The meeting is not over until the board has formally adjourned. Any discussion not included on the meeting agenda or accepted by the board is to be held until after adjournment or conducted outside the meeting room. Alex, you're muted. You're muted out. Okay, there you go. Alex, are you going to introduce Sandy? Or I guess he can't.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So Sandy's not here tonight. She's actually she had a commitment with the town she lives in prior to accepting her position. So she couldn't make the meeting, but this will be the last meeting that Mary oversees, and she'll be transitioning in after this. Sandy basically did this exact position in Casco for 15 years. So she comes with tons of experience for planning board and ZBA, and that's going to be her focus. She'll just be doing planning board and ZBA, and Mary's going to be just doing code enforcement. So we got too much going on for Mary to juggle it all. So we're splitting it up. So she'll be at the next meeting. I'm sure. I think you've probably already seen some emails from her. And I think you'll find that she's going to pick up right where Mary's left off.
Well, she's got big shoes to fill, and we're really going to miss Mary.
Yeah.
The next item on the agenda is an interview of applicant for membership of the board, and his name is Greg Dean. I had a chance to meet Greg on the last couple of site walks, and I think he'll be a good fit. But Greg, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Augusta,
and my family moved after spending some time on the West Coast. My family moved to Raymond this last fall. We used to come back for the summers and go fishing and whatnot. So I have family kind of all in the area, and the Zoning Board of Appeals kind of appealed to me after going through the process of buying my house, and I got a chance to talk to Alex about some interesting zoning questions, and just kind of have a background in engineering, so it kind of scratches that itch for me, and watched a few meetings and saw there was an opening. So yeah, it seems like I'm pretty excited to learn, and a lot of experience on the existing members. So excited to kind of participate and be involved in the community.
Well, thanks for thinking of the town. I just have a couple of basics, standard questions that we more or less ask everyone. I noticed on your application that you said you have participated in numerous volunteer organizations / causes on and off. Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've been involved in, kind of informally involved in a couple different organizations. One for battered women. From my wife's from India, and there was a organization that represents a group of women from India that I've helped participate and fundraise for. Some homeless shelters. I spent some time in San Francisco, so there was spent some time in homeless shelters and whatnot. So then, kind of as I was younger, I did a kind of more traditional volunteering. When you don't have a job, it's the way in. So and kind of outside of that, been on multiple private boards of private companies. Yeah.
Thank you. Does your schedule allow you to attend the meetings and all of the site walks, which are normally 2 weeks before the actual meeting?
Yeah. So fortunately, my schedule is pretty flexible now. The company that I work for has transitioned to a fully remote, highly flexible setup. So feel pretty confident that, with that flexibility, they wouldn't.
Do you have any friends or personal or professional on the board?
No.
Okay.
Sounds so cold to say that, but no.
It's okay. You understand that the ZBA makes difficult decisions in which, in some cases, or maybe in all cases, one party will be unhappy. Sometimes that's hard to deal with. Are you okay with that?
I am, yes.
I'm going to ask the board members if they have any questions for you. David, do you have any questions?
I do not. No.
Patricia?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Welcome. How about you, Tom?
Just what's your degree in engineering?
Computer engineering.
Oh, super. Okay.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we vote on to accept Tom to the ZBA and have him
Right.
continue on with Suluk and the next steps.
That's Greg. He said Tom. He said
Oh,
Tom.
well, I want to make sure he didn't quit. But anyways, I'm sorry, Greg. But anyways, can we take a vote? All those in favor?
Did you want a second on that, Len?
I want a second.
I will second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, raise their hand. All right, Greg, I'm sure that Sandy and Suluk will be in contact with you for the next steps.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for volunteering, Greg.
You're welcome.
Appreciated.
We hope to see you on the board soon. Okay. The next business is the application of Robert E. Guy for a setback reduction. Mary, did we open the phone lines? Did you hear me, Mary?
I'm,
Okay.
are the phone lines open? I'm not getting a response from them. Sean?
It is up.
Okay, thank you. The number's up. Thank you, Sean.
Okay, we'll get started here. On 5/15, the Board of Appeals conducted a site walk at 367 Webb's Mills Road. In attendance were Len Sorelli, Tom Hennessy. Absent was David Murch and Patricia Beaton. Greg Dean, an observer, was in attendance, and Troy Peavy, a neighbor, also was there. The owners of the property or any of the owner's agents were not at the site walk. The area for the setback reduction was staked off. However, we had no one to ask, so some points went unanswered, what we will ask them tonight. The home appeared to need a major facelift, but was being worked on judging by the construction material on the property. Neighbor Tom Peavy was opposed to the setback and indicated he would take part in the Zoom meeting. The home is located on a dirt road and is set back from Route 85. The property appears to be isolated in the woods. No neighboring homes appeared to be close to the property that I could see. We did locate a well, and there was another small shed on the property. It's the sidewalk. Robert and Rita, your application indicates that you want a setback reduction, and you're requesting a setback reduction to add 12 feet to the east end of your current structure. Should your application be approved, your structure would be 13.1 feet from the property line. From the nearest property line, the nearest property is about 600 feet to the nearest structure. There is an existing shed on the property. And before we get into questions and the criteria that you have to meet, Robert, would you like to tell us a little bit about the property and yourself and so on? You can speak.
I don't think there is an awful lot to tell. With the width of the building, I'm a builder, I have been for 40 years. It's unfortunate that I wasn't at the site walk. We were misinformed as to when it was going to take place. I would have been more than happy to take you to the inside, which is nearly complete. But with the width of the building, it's extraordinarily difficult to put a staircase to the second floor in the building and have it meet all the components of building code. That's the primary reason that we would like the building longer, to give us room for a legal staircase. I don't know how much more I can offer.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. What we'll do now is each of the board members will have questions for you, and you can answer them and take as much time as you need. We'll go over each criteria that's needed to approve your application, and then we will vote on it. Okay?
Yeah.
So I have some questions. I'll go first. Do you plan to reside there?
Yes,
Okay. Do you own your current home?
yes,
So the proposed structure will be used for your family. You will live there. You just said that. Okay.
yes.
We observed a well on the property. Is this well still operational?
If it is the well tile that you identified,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, it's operational. It's actually a drilled well, and they put a well tile, the previous owner put a well tile around it. If you slide the top over, it's a drilled well, and it absolutely is operational. I've been using it.
Thank you. Could you tell the board a little bit about the upgrade that you're doing to the existing structure?
Thus far, we have on the interior taken everything down to the frame and had it mold remediated, and then rebuilt from the inside. We re-insulated, rewired, replumbed, changed some of the partitions on the interior, and have installed the sheetrock. It's all hung and taped. All the bathroom fixtures are in place. The floors are tiled. We're ready to install the hardwood flooring. We did the inside first just because of weather.
Mm.
Just a lot easier to manage the inside than the outside. I did start some of the outside on the west end. Whoever did the site walk could at least get a sense of what the structure might look like when it's complete. We also planned an 8-foot deep porch on the north side and a deck on the south side.
Mhm.
I've got a staircase in it that is legal in every regard except for headroom at the very top. That was the best I could do.
Do you have any plans to upgrade the existing driveway?
Yes, that's good. It's also whoever did the sidewalk could tell you there's an excavator sitting there. I'm going
Oh,
to,
yes, we saw that.
yeah, I'm going to take care of the driveway, and I'm going to create a parking area also on the north side.
Great. What's your move-in date? Do you have one yet?
No, not firm. Certainly by next fall.
Have you had any objections from your abutters?
There was an incident where my masons, that's another thing I neglected. We put in a new, brand new 2-flue chimney with one side for a wood stove, all proper hearth that has been inspected by the fire department. And we've also installed a forced salt water system with a brand new furnace in the basement, and that's located in the other flue. The flues themselves are zero clearance. They technically don't even have to have a chimney around them, but there is one around them. And during the course of the construction of the chimney, my masons didn't realize where the property lines were, nor did I really, but they had taken excess mortar, maybe a gallon at a time when they were finished, and taken it out in the woods and dumped it on the ground. It was on the neighbor's property, and it was brought to my attention, and it was cleaned up immediately, and I told the masons not to do that anymore. And so that was a little bit of an incident with an abutter. It was taken care of right away.
Okay. Now we're going to ask members of the board to, if they have any questions to ask you, and again, take as much time as you need to answer. Some of this might seem redundant. However, we must be sure we are in strict compliance with the ordinances, so bear with us. David, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a few. Can you confirm for me, please, the need for the addition? Like what, you have the existing structure. So why is this addition needed?
The building is only 20 feet wide, and it's a high post cape, so it has what most people would call walls on the second floor, which means that the second floor walls on the outside are only about 4 feet high, and with only 20 feet to work with the current rise and run codes, you cannot fit a legal set of stairs in the building. You can, but it's very, very difficult. It would be much more livable if I were to have enough run to run the stairs and keep them down low enough underneath the second floor knee walls to make the turn with enough headroom to meet code. The stairs in the existing building were not even stairs really. It went up to a certain height and then they just set a box on the landing and stepped on the box up to the floor. Was not even close. And I did everything I could. I installed a set of winder stairs for the time being, and it meets code in every respect except the headroom at the very top of the stairs, and that's all you can do. I just need some more room to run the stairs longer.
Would you be able to meet this need with an addition which is of a smaller width? Right now it's set for 12 feet. Could it be done in a smaller, less width?
Possibly.
And could the staircase be placed perhaps in the back or in the front? Could that addition be shifted to a different side of the building?
You cannot put the addition on, you cannot put the stairs on either side of the building. They won't fit they won't, without, the stairs would have to go in front of the entry doors.
Okay, so it's not feasible.
No, if you try to run them up, anytime you get to a stair height that's tall enough to step onto the second floor, you no longer meet headroom code because of the knee wall on the second floor. So that the top of the stairs have to be something like 7 feet to the inside of the building. And the building's only 20 feet wide. You can't even run them on the gable end. It's just not wide enough.
Okay.
And you really can't add, it's possible to add width to the building, but on the back, there's a septic system, and that would have to be relocated in order to move the building that way. And on the front is, the septic tank is kind of an infringement, and it's just very difficult to move it that way. Also, the way that the roof is configured makes making it wider very tricky too.
And just to confirm, this will be your future residence, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So no intent then to do any rental with it or anything?
No.
Okay. And just to confirm again, you have a fall move-in date? Or is that sort of tentative?
Tentative,
fall.
that would be a good word.
Okay. That's it for my questions at the moment, Lynn.
Thanks, David. Robert, in the room where the staircase is going, is there room in there for anything else other than the staircase?
That staircase is currently in what would be the living room. And underneath the staircase is the staircase to the cellar.
Okay.
And the staircase is immediately, well, you go around a corner and then it goes up nearly over the entryway.
I got it. Thank you. Patricia, do you have any questions?
No, Alex, you concur with everything that was said?
Yeah, I've been in there a couple of times. We've talked about it and looked at the different options, and it makes sense that it's kind of a unique situation where it would be easiest to go that direction. It would be the easiest option. He said, you could go the other way, but just the ridge line of the roof, it's going to be a lot of work to go the other direction, and then you have to move components of the septic system, and so yeah, it makes sense. And the headroom right now is very low, not even close to what he would need. So we would like to see, that headroom at least meet the minimum for egress. So it makes sense.
All right, I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, Tom. Got any questions?
Yeah, I guess for both the owner and Alex, is there no possibility of just adding a dormer to bump up the headroom in the area of the stairs rather than infringe on the setbacks?
This is this is a post and beam structure. And when you start to cut into those types of timbers, there's a tremendous amount of engineering that will need to go into it.
Okay. I guess my other question is, and having reviewed the ordinance, there's a section in there that states that the only way we can grant a variance is that this has to be a single dwelling and has to be the residence, the primary residence of the person that's applying. And that doesn't seem to be the case at the moment.
Well, he hasn't moved in yet. So isn't that a little premature?
Well, I guess my question is that the wording says a variance under this subsection may be permitted only from the setback requirements for a single family dwelling that is the primary year-round residence of the applicant. Does that mean he has to be the current permanent resident?
In my opinion, no, but Alex, am I right?
I mean, it's a really good question, because I think if you're, strict interpretation of the ordinance, yeah, I think that's what it's saying. But there could be a possibility. I mean, if he's planning on making this his primary year-round residence, I don't know if that could be something that gets added to the approval. Just saying that it needs to be used as their primary year-round residence once they get a CO, because technically right now they don't have a CO, so it legally can't be anyone's residence because they don't have a certificate of occupancy. So, but he can't do that until the project's done, and he doesn't want to finish it just to open it back up to, do this, because then it would require changing things drastically in order to get that headroom to get the CO. So he's kind of in a dog chasing the tail situation with that.
Okay.
No, and keep in mind that the board can add any additions to the, should we approve it, we can add conditions to it.
Okay, the second line in that same paragraph says, a variance under this subsection may not exceed 20% of a setback requirement and may not be granted if the variance would cause the combined area of the dwelling and any other structures to exceed the maximum permissible lot coverage.
Excuse me, I don't mean to overspeak, Len. Tom, we have to go through every aspect of this and go point by point, and Len would lead that off. So questions directed aren't regarding the ordinances right now.
I guess I was just trying to save some time and find out if this is even a permissible thing to do.
Yeah, and that's what Len will lead us, and we'll go ahead and go point by point, but thank you. Yes, that would be how we're gonna proceed.
Okay,
Thanks, Pat. We will go through every point by point. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. Is there anybody on the phone, Mary, or that either is opposed or in favor?
Not a peep. There's nothing's popped up on the screen.
Okay. I'm kind of surprised Mr. Peavy indicated he would be on the phone line, but he could still come in if he wants. Well, I guess at this point, we should go over each point by point and decide if it meets the criteria or if it doesn't meet the criteria. Bear with me a second.
I'm gonna step away for 1 second, turn a light on.
Okay, good. Because I can't find what I'm looking for.
Oh, geez.
You all set, David?
I am, thank you, Lynn. Sorry about that.
Okay. Point number 1, setback reduction appeals may only be granted and are only available for lots with a residential building as the principal structure. Do we all agree on that?
Lynn,
Raise your-
Lynn, can you confirm for me what part of the ordinance that you're looking at? I just want to match up to what I have in front of me.
I'm looking at Article 6 on the Board of Appeals.
Okay, and section B, subsection C, that's what I have in front of me. I just want to confirm that's what you're looking at. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing.
I'm looking at D. Under Board of Appeals, Section B, reductions from minimum setbacks.
Okay,
It's
yes, I think
on page
we'll also need
27.
to, I think we will also need to review the items under subsection or section B as well, but I agree. Reductions for minimum setbacks, definitely a good place to start.
Board of Appeals may grant a setback reduction appeal if the board finds that granting the setback reduction will not result in unreasonable interference with the privacy interest of abutting landowners. It appears we don't have anybody in objection. So can we all agree that he's met that? Yes.
Yes.
Great.
In granting a setback reduction, the Board of Appeals may attach reasonable conditions which it must deem necessary, may deem necessary to serve the purpose of this ordinances. So what we were talking about a little earlier, Tom, if we need to add a condition that he has to live in the house, we can do that, or we can add any other conditions that we choose. So at this point, should it be approved, we can add the condition that he must be living there. Does everyone agree with that? Please raise your hand so I can see. A setback reduction appeal shall not be granted to enable construction or renovation that will create additional dwelling units. I don't think that applies here.
No.
A setback reduction appeal will be granted to enable construction or removal or renovation rather that will result in more than one garage on the lot that is the subject of the appeal. Doesn't apply. No setback reduction appeal may be granted that will result in impervious service lot coverage of greater than 15%. I don't think that applies either. If you don't agree, board, please tell me. Setback reduction appeals may only be granted the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. Setbacks may not be reduced by setback reduction appeal to less than the following minimum setbacks. Front yard 12 and, oh, I'm sorry, wrong zone. Front yard 20 feet, side yard 10 feet, and rear yard 10 feet. Any questions on that? I believe he fits in there okay. Now, David, you said something about you want to go to section B.
Yeah, there are, scrolling up here, but Section B, under powers and duties, the Board of Appeals shall have the following authority. And then going to subsection C, to grant setback variance for a single family dwelling only when strict application of the land use ordinance to the applicant and applicant's property would cause undue hardship. So there are some criteria here that we need to review.
What page are you on?
The page itself is 24. So Article 6, Section B, powers and duty.
Are we talking about a variance or a setback reduction variance?
Well, this is to grant a setback variance.
Setback reduction, okay. Because the variance for hardship is a whole different animal and very tough.
Yeah, this is, I understand there's undue hardship specific to certainly change of use, things like that. But then here it specifically says to grant a setback variance for a single family dwelling. There's undue hardship criteria that need to be satisfied. I believe this was a section Tom was looking at as well.
Well, in my opinion, the undue hardship in this case, the applicant would have to prove that the land can't be used for anything else.
No, there's a separate type of criteria specific to the setback. So in this case, it's not a request for, showing that it will provide reasonable return. First item actually is the need for the variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood. So these are 5 criteria specific to a setback.
And David, you're correct. This is the paragraph I was referring to. It's the section underneath bullet 5. So.
Okay, we can go through those. No problem. Number 1, the need for a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood. David, you want to comment on that?
If we choose to include the dwelling as part of the property, then I would say, yeah, it's a unique circumstance there. If the property doesn't include the dwelling, then I'm not sure that this would apply. I don't know how to interpret property.
Do you have an opinion, Patricia?
Well, he can't use, he has to have a proper stairwell and he can't have the property useful without it. And it does not affect the neighborhood with him doing such.
I agree. Tom?
If Alex agrees with this is the only possible solution, because there's 4.5 acres there to develop. So I'm okay with going forward, I guess.
I'd like to add, and Tom, you were there at the site walk, where this addition is going is really in the forest. I just can't imagine what else you could use that piece of land for.
Yeah,
Just
and I am also, kind of perturbed by the neighbor who's objected at the site walk, but didn't voice his opinion here, so.
The granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the locality. In my opinion, I just don't think it will. Remember, this house is very isolated. David?
No, I would agree. Granting would not alter it. So I believe we're good there.
Yep, I
Patricia?
would agree.
Great. It's in the woods. So,
Okay. The hardship is not the result of action taken by the applicant or a prior owner. This is a tough one. It could be said that the applicant bought the home knowing that, you know, there really wasn't enough room to do what he wanted to do with the staircase, etc. So it could be said that he created his own hardship. You want to comment, David?
Actually, I have if I could ask a question of Alex.
Go ahead.
Alex, was that this current situation for this home, was it ever code correct, you know? As you see,
Yeah, that's a tough one. I assume, I don't know I mean, this one was started before I came to Raymond. He had the project well underway, so I'd never been in there before he did any of the demo work. I would assume it was a finished living space, second story, which would lead me to believe that at one point in time, they got a permit and a CO, and it met the requirements of whenever it was built. But that is all assumption. I got nothing to back that up.
right.
So it is an older home. I don't know, Bob, if you want to tell us if you have any information on the history of it. I do know it is older. And, you know, as far as I can tell, it was legal at one point in time.
Well, I'm actually a little confused as to what I should say to put my best foot forward here. So I'm simply going to tell you the truth and hope it goes my way. There is indications that the home was constructed about 30 years ago. There was literally a box for the top step. I've been a carpenter. I go, maybe some of you might be familiar with a guy named Tim Pomelo. He was a selectman there many years ago, but I started with him in Raymond, and I can tell you that even then, that staircase was not even remotely legal, both from headroom and rise. It had a 9-inch rise. That's never been legal since I've been a carpenter. And certainly a step, a box for the top step, because the top rise was about 18 inches. It's certainly never been legal. And the headroom, the staircase is where it was when I bought it. So it never met headroom requirements. If they ever got a CO, I have no idea how. I would assume they just moved into it without the CO. And 30 years ago, things were much less formal, and they just moved into it and lived there, and nobody questioned them on it. But it was never a legal staircase. Now, I don't know if that helps me or hurts me, but that's the truth. Some of the window casings that I pulled out had delivery dates on them, which indicate the house about 30 years old.
I would say honesty is never going to hurt you. So I appreciate that. I have the hardest time with thinking this was ever okay if there had to be a box to step on to get up. So I do think there was an action of a prior owner, but I don't see how this could ever been legal. So I can't take in. I don't see how I can penalize the new owner, even though I do believe that perhaps this is the result of the previous owner. I don't ever believe it was legal, so I can't penalize something for something that was never right to begin with.
Can I interject? I've been into many houses in Raymond. There are so many older homes that, as far as today's codes go, they would not fly.
Right.
So, I mean, the staircases, I've been in homes that the staircases, I mean, doorways are off. I mean, you have to, like with this box in the step, the older homes, seriously, anybody moving in today would definitely need to make changes for it to be proper. And it's, sometimes they'll need a variance to do so. I mean, a setback to do so, or a variance, but I would definitely agree that the homeowner did not cause their own issue. So,
Robert, am I correct that the home was foreclosed on?
That's correct.
Okay. And you purchased it at the auction?
That's correct.
So that, the reason I mention that is it gives you an idea, how run down the place was, for what it's worth. What else we got? The granting of the variance will not substantially reduce or impair the use. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, my computer just died. Would you finish that one, David?
Certainly. The granting of the variance will not substantially reduce or impair the use of abutting property.
I don't see how it, I was there, Tom, you were there. We could see, other dwellings, but they're at least 600 feet away. And I probably should mention that Mr. Was it Peavy that had the objection? I didn't want to ask him too much about it at the site walk, but he did say that he objected to, I think I can quote him, someone new coming into the neighborhood and wanting to change things. That was the reasoning he explained to me, which I don't think means much at this point.
I was born and raised in Raymond. Mr. Peavy is the newcomer.
I didn't.
I grew up on Turtle Cove in Raymond.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear what you said about Mr. Peavy.
He's the new, I would wager with relative to me, he is the newcomer.
Okay.
I think Len, I think his major objection, as Bob mentioned, was, waste being thrown on his property. Now it looks like the property lines are well defined with all kinds of iron pipes. So hopefully keep all the contractors on your side of the property and there'll be peace in Raymond again, I guess.
Absolutely. I took then and take now full responsibility. I cleaned it up under the supervision of a forest ranger. The total amount of the mortar that they deposited would not fill a 5-gallon pail, but I cleaned every bit of it up along with a lot of leaves and everything, and right under the nose of the forest ranger. And I apologize that it happened. I had no knowledge of it, and I can assure you it won't happen again.
My computer died over here with the ordinances on it. What's the next one?
The fifth and final undue hardship is the granting of a variance is based upon demonstrated need, not convenience, and no other feasible alternative is available.
Have we covered that?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, and Len, the paragraph under number 5 is the one I was citing about has to be, a primary year-round residence. And you want me to read it?
No, well, he already said that, that he will be living there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's two aspects to that, and I think there's. Let me just. Do you mind if I go ahead and just read them straight from the ordinance?
No, go ahead.
It says a variance under this subsection may be permitted only from the setback requirements of a single family dwelling that is a primary year-round residence of the applicant. Secondly, a variance under this subsection may not exceed 20% of a setback requirement and may not be granted if the variance would cause the combined area of the dwelling and any other structures to exceed the maximum permissible lot coverage. So the way I see it, looking at this, is really 3 things to look at, one of which I think we should probably discuss just a little more of the primary year-round residence aspect. Then secondarily, not to exceed 20% of a setback requirement, which I'm guessing Tom probably has seen that the request does exceed that. And then finally, reviewing, does the combined area of the dwelling and other structures exceed the maximum permissible lot coverage? So did you want to, I would like to discuss the primary year-round residence a little bit more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a hard time with this one. I mean, this backtracks to what the state of Maine has as well, and it clearly states that it is, I mean, is interpreting to me as currently a primary year-round residence. So I'm having a hard time getting past that one because it is not at this point.
Well, again, if we choose to approve this, we can put a condition on it that he has to be a year-round resident. We can put a date on it or however you want to handle it. I think it, you know, he's obviously doing the construction and he's obviously, I think he's telling the truth when he says he wants to live there. You have no plans to flip it, do you?
No, my wife works in Portland, and we sold a home in Casco, and now I have a home that's really a summer home in Otisfield, and we're hoping to move into this place in Raymond and cut her commute to something reasonable.
Mm-hmm. I really don't think that's an objection in this case. That's my opinion. How about you, Tom?
I think if you put some condition on it that it has to function as primary residence by a certain date, then if that's a way to get around it, that's fine.
Well, just on a personal note, I'm building a house right now and this is year 2. You know, I thought I'd be there long before now. So, you know, it happens, but we will put a condition on it. We'll have to figure out how to word it. Everyone agree?
Agreed, because it's difficult right now. I mean, I've been waiting on cabinets for 4 months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
You're lucky if you can get them.
yeah, so.
Yeah, I think I'm going to officially disagree. I'm stuck on the fact that this, in my opinion, is intended to be for something that's already is currently being resided in. So I'm going to officially say no to that.
That's okay.
Do you want me to read the second section?
No,
You got it
my
up?
page back. So
Okay.
go ahead. It's the one that to hear and grant or deny, that one?
It says the variance under the subsection may not exceed 20% of a setback requirement.
Right.
So, Tom, you kind of brought this up originally. Did you want to put your comments to that? You're on mute there, Tom.
All right, the setback requirement is different in each zone, right? So if it's currently whatever, 25 feet, we're roughly cutting it in half. But Alex can correct me on which zone we're in and whether it's the side setback or the back setback but it certainly seems like it's more than 20%.
I mean, I'm showing based on my research in residential, the side setback is 20 feet.
Right.
Correct.
And my calculations at 25.1 feet out, that gives us 5.1 that really doesn't need to be included in the setback request. That gets us down to 20 feet. Then we would need an additional 6.9 that would take us to the 13.1, and 20% of 20 feet is 4 feet. So we really got 2.9 feet that we can't allow, which was kind of why I had that question of whether or not this proposed addition could be of a smaller width.
I thought, excuse me, I thought that was 20%. The setback of the addition couldn't be more than 20% of the whole dwelling.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. We're not, I didn't know.
So one of the things that's interesting about this too, if you go to the setback reduction minimum setbacks section, which is D, at the bottom of that D8, it actually gives an absolute, minimum setback, and the side and rear is 10 feet, which is way more than 20%. That would be 50%, right?
Of the 20. Right. I think
Yeah, it's saying you
it's the
guys,
whole
you can reduce
dwelling.
it down to 10.
Yeah. I think it's the interpretation of the thing, but I think it's not to exceed with regards to the whole dwelling.
Well,
Do you agree with that, Alex?
Yeah, that is, hold on, I just left it and I'm headed back to it. It says setback reduction appeals may only be granted to the minimum extent necessary to accomplish the purpose of the appeal. Setbacks may not be reduced by setback reduction appeal to less than the following absolute minimum setbacks. And then for the rural zone, it gives side and rear of 10 feet as the absolute minimum setback.
So 12 is logical.
Within the allowed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Patricia, can you tell me again how you're reading this, the 20% of a setback requirement?
Well, I don't think that they take that 20, would you say 20 feet, and then cut it up into 20%.
How do you interpret it?
Len, we've done this like so many times with the 20%.
I agree with you, Patricia. When I was, going over his application and looking at everything, I thought, I agree with you. I thought it meant of the whole structure. So I think we're okay.
It's 20% of a setback requirement. Requirement's 20 feet.
And the minimum is 10.
Right, but just because we have a minimum doesn't mean we don't apply the 20%. I mean, you're gonna have to blame the ordinances, you have
That
to
wouldn't
go by
be
whatever's
unusual.
stricter. Yeah, but if there's in our ordinance itself, it says if there is a conflict within the ordinance, you have to go with the most restrictive. So again, I feel that this fails this requirement as well.
Or we need a clarification.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys decide that it's too messy, we could always, you can table and I can get a legal opinion for the next meeting if you'd like. Personally, I might ask anyways, because it does seem to be something that we might need to fix, because it is confusing.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm fine with getting further input on this.
I disagree with David on this, but I'll go along with getting another opinion. How about you, Tom?
If you're gonna get the legal opinion, I guess we ought to throw in primary residence and the same opinion.
No,
You're getting ahead of the cart here.
Yeah.
We got to get the legal answer first.
I think that might be what Tom is saying, just a legal interpretation of primary year-round residence.
Alex, how long will it take you to get the answer?
I would say within 48 hours, typically.
And how should we proceed then? Should we table this?
Yeah,
For
if you're
how
looking
long?
for additional information, a legal opinion, you would want to table till the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone in agreement?
Agreed.
Yep.
Great.
And
I'll
you'd want to
make
do that as a motion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'll make a motion that we table this until the next meeting until Alex can clarify the 20% rule and also the the person has to live there. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay, the motion passes.
I think we got a vote on it, Len. We got the second, but no vote. So I'll vote to approve it.
Yeah, I think, okay.
That's to be official.
Well, Robert, unfortunately, we've run into this question that we can't seem to agree on, so we're gonna have to postpone it until the next meeting.
Well, I
Alex.
understand. I'd like to say it's been a pleasure to meet the board. And I thank you very much for your time and attention to it. It's been very thorough. And we'll hope for the best with Alex's investigation.
Thank you. Alex, is this something that when you get the answer that we can notify Robert of it? Not whether
Yeah.
we agree.
Yeah. What we'll do, I'll actually have Sandy kind of take this over tomorrow, and
Okay.
she'll send you guys something out and make sure to include him on it.
Thank you. Robert, thank you for your time.
Okay, one clarification.
Go ahead.
The information for the site walk was sent to our previous address in Casco. Any material that you need to send to us should be to my Otisfield address.
We have since, I went through the Casco assessor's office and found that address and assigned it to, gave it to our assessor. So that should be corrected in our records now. We just didn't have notification of that address change.
So
So
you have the new address now, or?
yes, I gave it to the assessor. So they will have updated it by now.
Okay.
I'll look right now.
Okay. Alex is gone.
Yes, Otisfield is the address in this assessor's database now. So any lists run from that will have your current address.
All right, well, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll pop in. It's how I could throw a rock from this property up to the town office, so it's pretty easy for me to drop in. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you for
very
your
much.
patience.
Give me a second. Okay, the next piece of business is an application from Jessica Bates. Jessica's looking for a conditional use permit for a takeout cafe in the LRR2 zone and a variance provision for non-conforming use. And my notes from the site walk. On 5:15, we did a site walk of the property. In attendance were Len Sorelli, Tom Hennessy, Jessica Bates, the owner, Greg Dean, the observer. Your next door neighbors, I didn't get their name. You're muted.
Yeah, my neighbors Bethany and Jeff Perkins. I believe they share the same last name. Bethany and Jeff, Bethany Perkins.
Okay, well, they expressed that they were in favor of your idea. Property is located at the intersection of Cape Road and Hawthorne Road, across the road from the Hawthorne House. There is parking for 6 to 7 vehicles, with more accessible if needed. Jessica and her partner, who is a chef, want to open a takeout and delivery sandwich business in a small part of the barn that's attached to their home. Jessica plans to promote their business on social media. No signage will be used except on the property. Jessica is still waiting for the bank to approve their loan to build a commercial kitchen. There'll be no eating inside or outside the property. Delivery will be available. Next door neighbors had no objection. The Hawthorne Historical Association had no objection. There is a small library across the street, which can have up to 6 or more cars parking in front of the library. The Hawthorne House is sometimes rented out for functions. Jessica plans to sell flowers just outside of the business. Then the proposed hours will be 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Do you also sell eggs, Jessica?
Yeah, they go pretty quickly. So when I have them, I put them out.
Okay. And across the street, I believe it's in Casco, just a beautiful river there. It's a beautiful spot.
Just a clarification, the loan that we applied for has been approved at this point.
Okay.
And then the spaces in front of the Hawthorne House, it's a large parking area, but only 2 spaces over there belong to the Hawthorne Association, and they've given us approval to use them if there's ever overflow. The library and the Hawthorne House are they're associated with one another.
I guess my concern was, what if the Hawthorne House and the library, what if it's rented out for a wedding or something? Where do they park?
It's rare that the Hawthorne House at this point is rented due to the instability in the floor structure. I'm on the board of the Hawthorne House, so we're working on renovations now and fundraising for renovations. We're about halfway there, a little over halfway to $75,000. I think that the long-term plan for that has been, and this is in the works, and it's privately owned property, so we'd have to ask permission. But I know in the past, the ball field by Tallwoods, I'm not sure if you're familiar, in South Casco.
I'm not.
It's just up the street down a little dirt road. There's an old ball field that's rarely used. And I know that the Hawthorne Association is planning on asking that landowner if there could be possibly occasional use of that land for parking in South Casco. It's just about a quarter mile down the road. So yeah, parking's always been an issue over there, which is why there tend to be not so many functions.
Your application was very thorough. Thank you for that. But would you take a minute or two? You don't have to read everything, but just kind of tell us what your plan is and, what your philosophy is and about how your mother sold baskets and so on.
Sure. Both of us are from the Raymond. Well, I'm from Raymond originally. I grew up in this house, and Pat's been, we both lived in, well, you lived in Raymond for a couple of years as a kid, from the Lakes region area. So this house was owned by my father for 40 years. My father and my mother did pass away several years ago, but I've lived outside of Maine most of my adult life, but 2 years ago I moved home to purchase the house because it was going to go on the market. So my father lives up the street. My mother used to have a small basket studio in the barn in the space that we're thinking of turning into the kitchen. And it was built at that time, kind of a few walls were put up in order to make it a space. It received mostly foot traffic from Migas Lodge and, summer people. It wasn't open in the winter time. And yeah, we're planning, the hope is, that we will turn the basket studio itself, which is a quite small space, into a small commercial kitchen, and then create a waiting area with the remainder piece of that small footprint in the barn for takeout, a takeout kitchen with a small menu using fresh local ingredients, hopefully using native Maine, staying away from, single-use plastics, trying to get farm-raised meats from the local area, grass-fed beefs if we use beef, free-range chicken, that sort of thing, and some vegetarian options as well. Tiny menu, you could speak to the menu probably a little bit better, but that's sort of still in the works. And yeah, and offer delivery services and just offer something in the neighborhood for just a good source of food on Raymond Cape Road, essentially.
I guess another concern that I had
Mhm.
was the traffic, and you said yourself in your application that particularly in the summertime, people go through that stop sign at the intersection of Hawthorne. And while I was there at your house, I did see people speeding by, and actually one person pulled up outside your house, parked on the street to, I think, buy eggs. I'm concerned about that. What if your business takes off the way you think it will, and it probably will? You know, I just don't see how you're going to handle all that traffic.
Well, the hope is
all across America.
Essentially, we're just hoping that we won't have an impact. We're not planning on pulling people off of 302 or anything of the like. We do have, I think, I probably would say, again, yeah, 6 or 7 spots. But we will have some signage out there. We're hoping to have most of our customer base be either summer residents or local people that are, you know, Raymond, Cape Road, Hawthorne Road residents anyway. And just be in communication with them that, you know, have ample signage out there that if the parking lot's full, that's all we can offer, and have you know, ample delivery options available up and down the Cape Road. So we're hoping not to interfere with traffic, but just be an option for pickup on the way by. Long term, I mean, there is parking across the street that belongs to 8 Cape Road. You know, he and I are in communication about some other matters. He's, you know, we have good relations. I know that he might be willing to rent me space across the street where the old store was down the line. I'm not sure, but hopefully if we see any problems with traffic and parking, I mean, I was a school teacher for 16 years, so I tend to proactively think of solutions to problems as I see like a glimmer of a issue arising. So I'm hoping that I can navigate that, and we can navigate that together, and be in good communication with the residents that what you see is what you get with parking, and if the parking lot's full, we're happy to deliver.
And I believe what you say, you have great communication with the person at number 8 and so on, but you really have to prove that. You have to have something in writing or something from him that we can see. We just can't say, oh, you know, if we need it, we can park over there.
Fair.
I would want to see something like that. Alex, I have a question for you. What comes first here? Does the Board of Health and the fire department with a commercial kitchen, do they have to go in first or not? Or can we?
No, that would be probably done after, because they really can't go much further without getting this approval from you guys. Once they have that, they could move forward with that option. And I mean, it is kind of an interesting one, because if someone wants to just put a second kitchen in their house, they can do that. So realistically, they probably could put a commercial kitchen in. It's when we have stepped into the takeout, you know, portion of things, and you know, they also wanted to possibly explore the idea of you know, doing catering, offsite catering. So the way I viewed this was as a home occupation, because it's not going to be set up as a commercial building. Essentially, it's still going to be a residential single-family dwelling that they're using a portion of the floor plan for home occupation use. So since this is in shoreland zone, it needs to meet the specific definition of home occupation. And if it doesn't, then it requires ZBA approval, as long as they meet the requirements of a home occupation, which is kind of broad, but also kind of specific in certain areas. So how this would work is they would need to meet those home occupation requirements with their business. If it ever goes beyond that, then they'd have to come back to the town and adjust things. And they may not even be able to go beyond that. But that's kind of the first step. And they would need to do that before they get any approvals through the state, through, you know, DHHS or whatever.
Just to say another piece of that, in terms of the traffic and the parking, I am, having not lived here for a long time and coming back to this residence, the traffic that's already going by is mind-boggling to me. And I certainly don't want to change the nature of the neighborhood in any way, and I certainly don't want to become a nuisance to neighbors. We both are very, we want to have good relations with our neighbors. We don't want to be causing any problems. I think both of us are ready to pivot if we need to. If something becomes problematic and the business grows beyond what we can offer, we would grow out of this location and into another location off-site. I mean, it is a home business. There's only so much traffic you really want coming in and out of your home anyway. So I think that if it were to grow, we would grow out of the space is the thought. Or something like catering where we would have less of an impact on the neighborhood. We are planning to offer, places for community members to voice opinions, things they're looking for and things that might become problematic, so that we can be in communication and not be too much of an impact. So just to
How would you handle deliveries? I'm talking about supplies, meat, bread, whatever.
deliveries of food sources.
Yeah, I mean, where are they gonna park? Is the truck gonna pull up?
Yeah, Native Maine have there's 16-wheelers going by, and we don't anticipate they're going to be our customers. They tend to go to Hilltop Mini Mart. We can't accommodate large vehicles, obviously, but in terms of like food deliveries, Native Maine trucks aren't super huge. If, depending on what you guys say, if we want to meet them off site and get food and shuttle food to the house, that's one option. There's also, down, by between the upper parking area and the brook, and there's a cement wall there. I'm not sure, it's probably in the map there. There is space for a larger vehicle to kind of back in if need be. There's also a spot across the street by the brook where fire engines in the past have pulled up to fill up water sources from the pond. I believe that's what they're doing over there. So I know that there is space, there is a little bit of a pull off. It is private property, we'd have to get approval for that, but I think there are creative solutions, I guess, if it's something that you have concerns about.
It's a tough one. I think that the board, all of us, are going to have several concerns. So rather than my continuing on, I think I'll turn it over to the board members, and we'll take it from there. And Patricia, would you like to go first, please?
Well, with regards to this parking, it is strictly a takeout or delivery location. So is there a minimum requirement for this parking? Because 7 sounds like quite a bit for like pickup.
Well, I mean, if you go someplace, if you go to Subway and buy a sandwich, I mean, you're in there for.
That's an eat-in.
But if you're taking it out, you're still in there while they're making it and whatever. I don't think it's going to turn over really fast.
That's what I'm
Once
saying. I
it
think
comes
7
in-
sounds like quite a bit of spaces for something that's strictly takeout.
Okay.
Parking for what we're offering, but I mean,
So it
We're-
seems sufficient.
just in terms of traffic flow and things too, to just add in Scott Crockett, who's behind my house. He hasn't spoken to you guys directly, but he's in support of the business, as is Wayne and Linda Whitney, who are on the other side of, I think it's Jones Road, 2 doors down. And they're staples in the neighborhood. They've watched the neighborhood change over time, and Wayne and Linda have lived in this very neighborhood there for I don't know how many years, decades and decades, and they're both pretty excited to have a food source. Wayne was saying Linda doesn't cook for him anymore, so he was excited to buy some food. So there's support in the neighborhood from the people seemingly who would be most immediate.
Well, it sounds like she has a lot of support, or I'm sorry, they have a lot of support, and I'm not seeing anybody come in against this so far. I mean, I don't have no callers, right? Right.
No,
And I think, did you notify I think like 13 people were notified, which might be, I'm guessing all of Hawthorne Road was notified. I think it's usually just the people abutting, but it seemed like a few notices went out. Or maybe that was to you folks, I'm not sure.
We send out notices to all owners of property within 300 feet of the subject property.
Okay.
let me just say this before the board continues with their questions. When you pull in the driveway in front of where the takeout is going to be, you can get 2 cars in there. But if you're the first one to pull in and someone pulls in behind you, you got to wait till, they leave before you can get out. As you're looking at the house to the right of the property, they have some land that they can use for parking. And that's fine, except that it's a little bit of ways. People would have to walk, 15 feet or so to get to the place. My other concern is, I think it's such a beautiful spot. Your home is beautiful, and the river across the road. If it were me, and on a nice day like today, I went and bought a sandwich, I'd want to go sit out there. I'd go over, maybe I'm not going to sit in your front lawn, but I'd want to sit by the river. I really think you're going to have some issues there, but that's my opinion. Do you have any other questions, Pat?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, how about you, Tom?
Yeah, having gone to the site visit, it is a nice area next to the little brook there. But my concern also is traffic and stop signs.
Not as intense as you would think, because it's a home occupation. So that's going to say, in addition to the off-street parking provided to meet the normal requirements of the dwelling, adequate off-street parking shall be provided for the vehicles of each employee and the vehicles of the maximum number of users the home occupation may attract during peak operation hours. So where do we get that number? The only way we can get what that number would be from the applicant to provide us some idea of what they think that number is going to be on, peak operation hours. And they are limited on employees too. So we are able to kind of figure out what that number would look like, but it's really, maximum number of users the home occupation may attract during peak operation hours. That's kind of the question mark.
So if we count on 2 residents and 1 employee and then whatever customers come in, is there a requirement for all of them or some of them to have a turnaround so they're not backing out into the road?
Not specifically in the home occupation standards. That's not required. They just need to have off-street parking for each one.
So it's not a DOT or something else involved?
This would be a town road. So we could check with Public Works, but I would be surprised. I think there's state law that says you can't back into a private or public way, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily something that we can work with here.
Okay. It was a strange intersection where it tees in and only 2 of the roads have stop signs.
Yeah, I think the stop sign on Cape Road that's, facing the peninsula, that was actually never there growing up. Scott Crockett, who used to live next door, when he had small children, fast traffic through Raymond Cape Road was a real problem, and he was concerned. And so he had that stop sign put in essentially just to slow traffic, knowing that people might not stop at it, knowing, people that are visiting, driving fast cars. I almost think that having a business in that spot would improve traffic conditions in a couple of ways. First, a lot of the people that drive in and out of Raymond Cape Road don't live here, don't have stakes in the neighborhood, Airbnb-ing up in Fry Island, racing to get to the ferry. I feel that out-of-state visitors, obviously they're wonderful, but if you don't live here and you're coming from a different place where traffic is moving more quickly, I think having an established community location at that intersection would have more cross-pollination between local residents, such as, Wayne Whitney, who will say it like it is, and out-of-state visitors, and actually improve some of the major problems that are on this road and frankly unmonitored. Our sheriff, there's a sheriff that lives right up the road, and no one's ever watching how fast people are going through there. People are, they've got their souped up cars and they're racing through. I think that having a local establishment where there's dialogue about the safety concerns on Raymond Cape or on Cape Road would be actually quite beneficial. There was also, in terms of sitting by the brook and wanting to kind of linger, there's a couple pieces there. The Hawthorne Association has told us, and this is something, I don't know if this will gum up the process and cause even more problems, because we obviously wouldn't do it if it did, but they've said, because I'm on that board and I was just speaking with them the other day, and that if there was ever overflow where somebody did want to sit down and have a sandwich, maybe an elderly person that wanted to just sit for a moment, they would be open, because they've wanted to kind of have more kind of traffic in through the Hawthorne House to kind of show what's going on there, and have maybe rebrand a little bit so that there is more community support, financial support for that building and just maintaining the building. And they've said that it wouldn't be a problem for us to put, a few little cafe tables in the Hawthorne House if there was overflow. That's way down the line. I don't think we intend on spending any money on that essentially, but if it became a problem, there is a creative solution there. Not to go long-winded, but I have a lot. There's also the 8 Cape Road across the street. It's the red building with the large parking area. That actually was quite a busy store for decades across. They sold sandwiches, pizzas, milk, cheese, things like grocery staples, which we're not planning on offering. They even had a gas station over there at one point. And that was a really busy store. They had long hours. So it was already kind of vetted by the neighborhood, that the neighborhood didn't really appreciate long hours, like late night traffic stopping by. But a lot of people on Cape Road have really missed having something right at that intersection. And though time has changed this neighborhood a little bit, I think there's something lacking from not having that across the street anymore. And I think this could maybe add something of value to the neighborhood that maybe could improve safety on Cape Road. That's all. Just yammering on.
It's okay. We gotta get, again, I love your enthusiasm, and I can see how excited you are, but for example, to say that, elderly people can sit by the brook there, what happens when a convertible pulls up with 7 kids in it?
Well, I'm a school teacher, so I'm really good at teacher voice, and I can get people to, I can be friendly and also direct and assertive, and, quite frankly, it's our home, so we don't necessarily, we're not allowing any access down by the brook at all.
I know.
At all. So, yeah, I feel like we can manage it, but I understand your concern too. So I'm just trying to prove.
Well, I think I've made my point, David. Oh, Pat, you done with your question?
I'm listening.
How about you, Tom?
I guess the other question is, with running a commercial kitchen operation, I assume Alex is involved in like increasing the septic system for all this and whatever else other parameters need to be enhanced?
Yeah, that would be after this stage. There is a requirement through the licensing process. They have to have the LPI approval that the kitchen can handle the wastewater load. So that would be a discussion down the road.
Thank you.
All right, David, it's all yours.
Thank you. Patricia, I just want to, excuse me, Jessica, I just want to echo what Len said. Thank you very much for your application. The way it was laid out and the information presented was excellent in this whole process. So thank you so much for that effort you made. And also, just to let you know, I was not at the site walk, but I did drive past the property on Saturday, May 22nd. So I did get a chance to, as driving by, get to see the property. One of my questions is, in your write-up, you talked about foot traffic being a part of the business. I didn't notice any sidewalks. I didn't notice any crosswalks. When it comes to, say, when your mom had the business there, were there any, do you anticipate, not that you have to put in crosswalks or put in sidewalks, but do you anticipate any issues with that, especially if it becomes a popular place to go?
I think it would, I don't see any issues. I see bigger issues up the road by Serendipity Farm, where there was a fatal accident because there's just a blind spot there and people are cutting through really quickly. That's about 3 miles up the road. But I do think that if there is increased foot, people walk up and down the road, people run, there's never, and when people are running and walking on the road, there is pretty good visibility and cars slow down. That's the slowest you see cars going by actually when there's foot traffic. So I think people driving are very conscious, especially in that intersection of runners, bikers, walkers. I think because that's probably one of the safer spots on the road because you're not going 40 and, well, you're not supposed to be going 40. And, but if there's people around, people do slow down, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just, I just was hoping for clarification. I have the diagram that was provided, and
It's not great, sorry. It looks like
it's fine. It's better than I can do for certainly. Now, I was not at the site walk, and I'm trying to get confirmation looking at this of where specifically the store part of it would be. I see essentially an upside down L or J, where it's with an arrow pointing to it, saying that's where the takeout diner or takeout kitchen would be. But then to the immediate right of that is essentially a grayed out box. What is that grayed out box that I'm looking at?
I'm looking at the moment. Oh, that's a wood shop that isn't
Okay.
with. So essentially, if you were to come down, and granted, if there's more discussion after this meeting and anybody wants to come see the space, we can arrange that. That's not a big deal if you want to come have a look, if you didn't get a chance to. But essentially, if you're coming Hawthorne Road and you're at the stop sign, directly in front of you is a driveway with 2 glass doors. That would be the entrance. And within that, there's a small waiting area, and then the L-shaped spot is where the kitchen itself would go. I believe, I'm thinking about my diagram, hoping that's accurate, but
Okay.
in front of the glass doors.
So that sort of grayed out section, would that be a part of the kitchen, or well, the overall business, or is that not a part of the overall business?
So in front of the glass doors, there's a square area that's probably, I don't know, 10 by 15, would you say? Like the waiting area?
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 by 15. So to the right of that, the bigger barn area is, we would have a sign out on that barn, but that's essentially the wood shop. We don't plan on doing anything.
Okay, very good.
at all.
Um,
The footprint itself is, I think, about like of the whole thing is something like under 500 square feet, probably. I think.
Okay.
So, tiny.
In regards to the business itself, is the food that will be prepared for takeout, is it going to be already pre-prepared, or is it more in line with going in, seeing what's on a menu board, placing an order, and then having the food prepared at that point?
You want to speak to that one?
All the food will be made to order. We're hoping to push like the online delivery theme, so that people can order ahead online, whether it's through an app or a Facebook page. But that's how, in my mind, that's going to be more efficient as far as like the pickup times go and things like that, people getting in and out. So we'll be pushing that for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of my concerns with that question is, essentially from arrival time to getting out, what would that potentially look like, especially depending on if you're placing an order. Also, in the documentation you had provided, you'd mentioned that you would look to do it during daylight hours. And then you had mentioned possibility of hours of 11 to 7. Will this business also be open during the winter time? Because if it's winter time, that would mean shorter hours. Or would you intend to perhaps add some lighting to help with the parking and stuff like that?
It's hard to say what would happen in winter. Lose a lot of the summer people that live in the area. I'm not sure if we can support ourselves through the summer, so we're prepared to take the winters off and if need be. I don't anticipate being open per se after night. 7 p.m. I was thinking, those were just rough. I was thinking more summertime hours.
Yep.
One we've been bouncing around is if there is a continued demand for food, then we could shut the doors but offer strictly delivery after a certain hour or something like that. So we don't have the nighttime hustle and bustle, because we don't really want people coming and going in the evening hours for a lot of different reasons. If we had to put up lights, we could, but I don't anticipate we would really need them. But
Okay. So I also in the diagram that you provided, I'm seeing certainly where the business is intended to go, and then in front of that I see indication for parking, and then if I'm facing the building, if I look a little bit more to the right, I see an indication for some additional parking, and then additionally, if I look to the left, which appears to be left of the house itself, I see parking there as well. When I drove by, I noticed like a huge tree. So is that like an area up for proposed parking? Like if it could
no,
be.
that's my raised beds are back there, so I'm not willing to give up that space. Plus, it would be really close to our neighbors to have parking over there. There is one spot if you're facing the house to the left of the front porch, but it is just for one car, and we were not thinking about expanding.
Okay, so that parking is not parking for the business per se, but parking for your own personal vehicles.
So yeah, just keeping the car out of the way.
That's fine. I was envisioning seeing that whole tree coming down and.
Oh no, it's a beautiful tree.
Yeah, it is a beautiful tree. I agree with you. I appreciate your patience with this. I think this was brought up. I would just like to touch on it again. I heard Len say probably up to 6 or 7 cars. My thought is, how many vehicles do you believe you can have? And echoing what Tom said, having them really be able to maneuver to get out. So, if the 4 of us as ZBA members come in for lunch one day, that's 4 vehicles we can park in, but will we be able to get out, or will we have to wait for one of ourselves to leave?
I I think the way we're anticipating it now is if you're facing the building there's a wooden plank pathway that leads to a raised, what's on the parking area. Currently, residentially, we park facing the back, parallel to the house. I guess you would say, like, you know, perpendicular to Cape Road. What we would be doing as a business is parking parallel to Cape Road, so having a series of spots clearly marked, some sort of barrier between the upper part of the parking area and that banking that's there, maybe some rocks or I'm not sure yet, but have the cars and, you know, unless you're a huge vehicle, I think there's enough room to get in and out of there. Okay. If you go below the banking, if you're a larger vehicle, I mean, I have a Nissan Versa and I can get in and out of that area as well. So, I mean, there is some room for overflow if need be. I'd kind of like to discourage it, but yeah, that's our vision is parking parallel, perpendicular to the banking that's there. And I think you can see a lot more cars.
Okay. I have one more question for you, and then I have a couple of questions for Alex. So in the write-up that you've provided, I saw you mentioned the business plan. If the business plan goes beyond year one, what are your expectations, you know, in terms of the business for year one, year two, and year three, just in terms, or even just year one and year three, perhaps, just in terms of, you know, growth?
I mean, we've been kind of just waiting on a lot of pieces to fall together. One was the bank loan, which was sort of critical. So that's held us back in our long range thinking because we didn't want to get too ahead of ourselves. But I think both of us are in agreement. I mean, that if we want to keep a really small menu that's perhaps rotating or changing, but small items on the menu and a smaller clientele in this particular space. So if the business were to grow, we a different location in a truly commercial zone somewhere is the vision. I mean, I can't foresee too much growth because we're confined by the amount of space that we have. So, and the amount of employees that we can have in that environment. So I mean, we're trying to stay tiny, and we've said, you know, that in year one, if, you know, we don't want to be sitting on a lot of inventory either. So if, you know, we run out of something, we run out of something. That's just the way it goes. We're not looking to be Applebee's. So, you know, yeah, it'll be delicious. That's what is guaranteed, I think, and local and no plastic.
Very good. Thank you for that. Alex, just a couple of questions. For this particular request, are the hardship requirements required?
I don't believe so. Looking at the ordinance, it just appears to just require you guys to follow the home occupation standards. And I guess you're approving it as a conditional use. So I guess if you wanted to, you could apply the conditional use standards on top of home occupation, but it looks as though it's just set up to basically be a home occupation that the ZBA reviews.
Okay.
Which is kind of similar to how the planning board reviews stuff instead of the code officer, but in this case, they required the ZBA.
Okay, because the applicants, they submitted hardship requirements, and I wasn't sure if we need to review those or if we can, you know, skip over that.
I didn't know if I needed to, and I could, so I just did it anyway.
Okay. I had asked a question sort of last minute of you, Alex, but just to see, are there any other businesses offering food or drink services in LRR2 or even potentially LRR1?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. I chuckled actually when I got that email a couple of days ago, and I said, oh boy, that's a fantastic question. No easy way for us to search that. That's something that it kind of just took me looking through the town zoning map and kind of coming up with a list based on what I am familiar with. So based on the zoning map, because we have a 600-foot shoreland zone, I can't really say for sure which ones are LRR1 and which ones are LRR2. But I can say in the shoreland zone, Good Life, the Mosquito, actually kind of down near you, Sunset Variety, Big Apple, Castletop Park does have a snack shack there in the shoreland. A couple marinas, I'm not completely sure if either of them have some type of food service within their marina for their patrons. So I put that on there, but I'm pretty sure that's it. That's the list that I was able to come up with. So there are some out there, but they're not home occupations. They're actual commercial operations, which have been in operation for a while.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know it was a last minute request, so.
No, it's fine.
Looking into it.
Yep.
That's all I got for now.
Well, here's my opinion on this. It seems like we have an awful lot of things to cover. And I think, I keep saying this, but Jessica, I think you have a lot of ideas. Just let me give you an example. We will not generate noise, vibrations, fumes, odors, dust, or glare, which are detectable at the lot boundaries, and all aspects of the conditional use will be carried on within the structure. We are confident that we will not generate noise, vibrations, et cetera, et cetera. That's great to say that, but in my opinion, we need to know how you're going to do all these things. And I don't think we're ready. Again, in my opinion, I don't think we're quite ready to vote on this yet. I don't know what the other members think, but I'd like their opinion. Pat?
Well, I'm wondering where this list is that we have to go through with regard to the home occupation. It seemed like there was just a list of points to go.
Yep.
Yeah, I have it here. If you want to go through it, we could do that.
Oh, okay.
Any other
And it's
thoughts?
Article 9B in the land use ordinance, if you wanted to follow along. 9B.
Okay, I got it here. The home occupation shall be carried on wholly within the dwelling or accessory structure. Well, I guess that's okay. The home occupation shall be carried on primarily by a member or members of the family residing in the dwelling unit. Not more than 2 persons who are not family members residing in the dwelling unit shall be employed. There will be no exterior display, no exterior sign, except as expressly permitted by district regulations of the ordinance. No extra storage of materials and no other exterior indication of the home occupation or variation from the residential character of the principal building. Number 4, objectionable conditions such as noise, vibration, smoke, dust, electrical disturbance, odors, heat, glare, or activity at unreasonable hours shall not be permitted. Number 5, in addition to the off-street parking provided to meet the normal requirements of the dwelling, adequate off-street parking shall be provided for the vehicles of each employee and the vehicles of the maximum number of users the home occupation may attract during peak operation hours. The last one is the home occupation shall not utilize more than 20% of the total floor area of the dwelling unit. The basement floor area shall be excluded in the calculation of the 20%. And that one I don't think applies. But those are the standards. And again, I just think we need some, I think Jessica has to give us a little more concrete answers to some of this. That's me.
Could I for a minute? I mean, I guess it's hard to, I understand that it's a tricky one. And I mean, I can only give you my word, which is, I mean, we both are really connected to this area. We both want to work with the community. I mean, if all we can say is maybe there could be some sort of provision in the write-up I'm not sure that if there's a problem, then we fix it. You know what I mean? Then we pivot, then we change, then we grow, then we evolve to something that's more sustainable to the community. I mean, you can't necessarily anticipate every problem that's going to arise, but I mean, we're both problem solvers. We both want to work within the parameters of the town. We don't really want to be, you know, annoying to you guys. So I think we can, I mean, that's all I can give you is my word that we'll do our best and try to throw
Alex,
out potential problems before they arise.
Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Is someone's word good enough?
Oh, well, it's all we have, really. You know, I think when someone is applying for something, in this case, she's applying for a home occupation permit, we can take that application and everything that's said there as her statement of compliance, essentially. You know, I'm going to comply with these. If it becomes an issue, or we find that they're not complying with, you know, the odor, vibrations, you know, noise, if they aren't complying with that, then they're in violation of that section of the ordinance, and then it would become an enforcement action. So yes, it is one thing to say something, but it does actually need to be followed, or else the town would take enforcement action. So we do have, I guess, a second defense. If, you know, they say they're going to follow it and they don't, then there's something we can do about that.
Okay. Well, I guess the next step, we'll have to go through all the criteria for each. I'm sorry, for the conditional use and the variance provisions for the non-conforming use. We'll have to go through all the criteria. So I guess my question is to the board, do you want to continue with this, or do you want to table it to the next meeting? Anybody, any ideas?
Well,
No.
I have a question. So both 3 and 4 do apply. We've already covered most of the other areas with the occupation.
Right.
So I'm okay with proceeding.
Yeah, I'm good with it too. I mean, they're ready to roll, and I think if we have the ability to help them move forward in a timely manner, we should do it.
Okay.
I just don't know for sure. I mean, you guys can chat about it if you want. I know they definitely need to meet those home occupation standards. I just don't know for sure that they need to meet the conditional use requirements in the land use ordinance. And I definitely don't think you need to go through the variance provisions for non-conforming use, because we aren't changing the use of the structure. The primary principal use is still a residential single family. So we're not changing that.
So you're saying 3 and 4 do not apply, and as long as we do cover that home occupation, we're good.
I just haven't seen anything in the ordinance that the section for home occupations within the shoreland zone is extremely specific. And basically just says the ZBA needs to go through the home occupation standards in order to approve it.
Okay, so this is obsolete. Then as long as we cover the areas of the home occupation, I think it's a done deal. Is that correct?
Personally, that's kind of my read on this one. And like I said, if you guys want to hash that out and go a different direction, then I get it. But that from what I saw in the ordinance, that's what it looks like to me.
What does everybody think?
What about the conditional use? Do we have to go through that?
I don't think it's actually a conditional use. It's still going to be a home occupation. It's similar to a conditional use, just because it's not specifically defined as a home occupation in the definition section. So it allows, even though it's not listed as one of the uses in a home occupation in the definition, it allows the ZBA to approve other home occupation uses that aren't in there, as long as they meet those standards, the home occupation standards.
Yeah, if I can, the shoreline zoning, this is what Alex is speaking to. It says, all other home occupations not specifically listed in the definitions of home occupations in Article 12 of the Raymond Land Use Ordinance, which this is not, shall be considered conditional uses that must conform to the standards set forth in Article 9, Section B of the Raymond Land Use Ordinance, and that must be reviewed and approved by the Appeals Board. And that section in the Land Use Ordinance says specifically home occupation standards. So it seems pretty specific that we're narrowing down to simply home occupation standards.
All right, let's do it. Okay, we'll go through all 6 of them. Number 1, the home occupation shall be carried on wholly within the dwelling or accessory structure. I think they're fine on that. Everyone agree?
Yep.
Yep. The home occupation shall be carried on primarily by a member or members of the family residing in the dwelling unit. Not more than 2 persons who are not family members residing in the dwelling unit shall be employed. Again, we'll take Jessica's word on that. I think they're okay. There shall be no exterior display, no exterior sign, except as expressly permitted by district regulations of this ordinance. No exterior storage of materials and no other exterior indication of the home occupation or variation from the residential character of the principal building. I think they're okay with that one. If you disagree, Board, please speak up. Objectionable conditions such as noise, vibration, smoke, dust, electrical disturbance, odors, heat, glare, or activity at unreasonable hours shall not be permitted. Well, I don't think they're going to be open at unreasonable hours anyways, but Jessica has indicated they're going to put in an exhaust fan and this and that, so I think they're okay. In addition to the off-street parking provided to meet the normal requirements of the dwelling, adequate off-street parking shall be provided for the vehicles of each employee and the vehicles of the maximum number of users the home occupation may attract during peak business hours. Again, I guess we have to wait and see. I mean, you know, we can add all these to conditions if we do approve this, right, Alex?
And I mean, my dad and his wife live 5 miles up the road. So if there's, you know, if I need to bring my car up there, you know, there's options up there for parking. Well, I mean, ourselves.
Yeah, unfortunately, the requirements are for the property itself. So even if you are able to move the vehicles, you still need to account for those spots. So what's that? At least 3. So 3, and how many vehicles did you anticipate for, say, a noontime rush?
I mean, 8 tops, I don't know. We can fit 7 or 8 down there, and then the front and the side.
Yeah, it just depends on
Size of the vehicle.
the size of the vehicle.
And then there's also, I don't know where that comes in with shoreline, but there's a lot of space beyond what we're calling the parking area, but in front of the concrete wall down by the brook. But I don't know if, I mean, we drive our cars down there now, there's a boat down there parked.
Essentially a tow road.
What is it? I don't
Like
know
a tow
what it is.
road?
Yeah. So there's spots down there too, if we need it, but that's not what I wrote in the proposal as like our parking area, what we anticipate our parking area to be.
So I apologize. How many vehicles, just specific to the people coming for business, coming to pick up some of your food offerings? How many vehicles do you anticipate during a peak time?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, that's,
I would be busy.
I feel like that's all we can.
You wouldn't be able to cook that fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can cook very fast.
Site walk, I think, I counted with your driveway and the space to the right, 6 or 7 cars. Comfortably.
So 3 would accommodate employees. So that would leave, what, 4?
Approximately, yeah.
That lower part could be used for employee parking.
That's a good call.
Yeah,
Yeah,
near the woodshed.
so that's 4, that would be 6. Well, the employees and us or whatever.
Yeah. And we could fit 4 cars.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done the measurement, so it's hard for answer. I mean, we've just eyeballed it. If you want me to come back with a specific number, I can do that. Yeah, I don't know.
You
The
see,
last one
oh,
is the home occupation shall not utilize more than 20% of the total floor area of the dwelling unit. The basement floor area shall be excluded in the calculation of the 20%. I'm sure they're okay on that one.
Looks like it.
Well, at this point, we could take a vote, and if approved, we can add all the home occupation standards as a condition. We can do that, right, Alex?
Yeah.
Does anyone disagree with that?
I'm sorry, what did you say? We're gonna add all of the home occupation
Yes.
as, okay.
Greg, you've been sitting here, and did you change your mind about joining the board yet?
No, I did not. But
As an observer, do you have, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I appreciate you asking. I think the sentiment that I got from the neighbors was all very positive, and it seems, I guess my opinion doesn't matter yet. So I'll just stop there and answer your question. No questions. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use and variance provisions for non-conforming use and add to that that they must apply with all the home occupation standards. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
We need to vote, or I think we're pretty much all in agreement, right?
well, I think you need to vote, Len, make it official.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise their hand. All those opposed? There's nobody left. The motion passes. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for
Yay.
your opinion.
Thank you. Thank you and I mean, we read the provision, so we plan on being in compliance, so. And then you can just kick us out if we're not. It's fine.
Well,
We
as
sound like a conscientious neighbor, so.
you really do, and I think as you come across solutions to some of these concerns, you could let the board know, via email. That would be great. We're going to move on. Oh, you can close the phone lines. I don't know if anybody is in there, but you can do that. Greg, you don't have to stay if you don't want to. You're welcome to stay. And Jessica, and I forget your partner's name. You can leave if you don't want to stay. That's okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much for all your time and questions, and let us know if you have more.
Okay.
Good
Thank
luck
you
with
for
everything.
investing in the community.
So much.
Good luck. Good luck with your business.
I'll be a customer.
Yeah, we'll make you good. Thank you.
Okay.
And
We're going to move on to code enforcement officer communications. But Alex, we do have a couple of questions for you before you start, okay?
Sure. Yeah.
David brought up to me today, and he was right, that the manuals, the ordinances that we use, we don't have the most current one. David, you know the dates, and we're wondering when, excuse me, and how we could do that, get that.
Yeah, sure. It is, it's, you guys aren't the first ones this week to bring it up. It kind of seems to be a trending topic for a while, and then it goes away for a few weeks. You actually do have the most recent version. So it is a problem. There was amendments voted on in 2020 that were all approved. And they're not in the ordinance that is published on the website and in physical copy. The reason for that is, well, there's a couple of different reasons. One, there's no staff time to do it. We're kind of in like a code red situation right now for planning and code enforcement. We haven't been able to keep up. And I actually pulled the stats last week on permits submitted, and we're like almost double from 2017. So we're almost doing twice as much work as the office was in 2017 now. And it's obviously gotten busier each year since. But we've peaked right now. This is the busiest year so far that we've ever had. So we're unable to keep up at all. I mean, my email inbox and the list of voicemails is, I mean, it's hundreds long, and I've been booked out for inspections almost a week and a half, 2 weeks in some situations the last couple of weeks. So that's part of the reason you've noticed now that Mary is stepping away from the boards and focusing just on code enforcement. We needed more help. Mary's not even full-time. And the two previous towns that I came from, which were slower, definitely Casco, I had a full-time assistant. So we didn't have enough help. So now we have a little bit more help. We've had Sandy for a couple of weeks, and that's, I think, going to be a good change. So we don't have the staff time to update it. So this came about actually right after I started. The other issue is these ordinances were written on I guess an open source software that the town no longer uses. And it's not really compatible with Microsoft Word. So it's not as simple as just sending me the Word document and updating the ordinance. It's a little bit more technical than that. So really the combination of those two things has made this process more difficult than it should be. So we looked at this on the department head level 4 or 5 months ago, and we talked about outsourcing, looking at possibly having the town's third-party engineering firm we contract our planning services with, looking at having them update the ordinance. We also talked about having the law firm that we use update the ordinances for us. Both incredibly expensive. And then we also looked at another company which I used in Casco previously, called General Code, which basically is a company you outsource your ordinances to, and they codify it all and maintain it for you each year, and kind of host those ordinances online. That's a service that we are planning on going with. It's pricey the first year because they do a legal analysis of all the ordinances to make sure that they're all legal before they actually import them into their system and then continue to maintain them over the years. So we had to budget for July, for the start of the next fiscal year. So that's actually something in the budget for July if it passes, in the vote in a couple of weeks. Obviously, we had to wait until we had the money. First part of it. Second part of it is it takes some time to do once we actually get the approval to spend the money on it. So that's going to take some time. We did have another issue yesterday about regarding this, specifically a change that was made in 2020 on the signs, political signs. So this is now kind of elevated back into the light, I guess, in a bad way. So I may I may be able to bring it up at the department head meeting tomorrow and see if we can spend some money or possibly get someone in the office other than Mary, Sandy, and myself to help us with updating it, at least in the short term. So right now what we're doing, and it's something we could give you guys copies of it. We basically have the addendums from the warrant from 2020, the attested, approved, as voted copies, and we kind of use those as a supplemental. So it's possible we could post that with the land use ordinance online. Can give those to you guys in the short term. Whatever you want, we can do to make it easier. But it is something that we're working on. It's just been not the most straightforward problem to fix, I guess, is the best way to put it. So yeah, that's that.
I don't want to drag the meeting on forever here, but I do want to bring this up. And David and I emailed each other about this today. The findings of fact that are written by the chairperson after each meeting. Basically, it's a recap of everything that we've done. And again, I'm no Joanne, but I've been doing the best I can on them. And normally, after I submit it to you and Mary, in a few days, we get a note saying all members come in and sign off on it. Well, that hasn't happened for a few meetings, and I'm kind of, I don't know if it's because I am not doing it right or what's going on with it, but it takes a long time to do that, at least for me. So I'm wondering what's going on with that.
Yeah, so that will fall under the same category. That's something that you're going to be working with Sandy on now. That falls under the same umbrella as the minutes for ZBA and Planning Board that have kind of been outstanding as well. So that's why Sandy's here. She does a good job with that. She'll be able to help you and make sure that we're on track with those and making sure you guys get them to sign and that they're posted on the website and in the file and everything. So I don't know, have you had an opportunity to meet her yet, Glenn?
No, I have not.
Okay. I think what we had said last week was after this meeting, she was going to try and reach out to you at some point in the next week or two to have you come into the office and just sit down with her and go over a few things.
Sure.
That would be one of them. Just so that you guys can get on the same page on what's going to, what the process is going to be on that stuff. But she'll be able to take over that completely. And I expect that we'll be going in the right direction now. I mean, it's just impossible for Mary to follow up on that stuff when there's, a line out the door or the phone's constantly ringing. So it'll be, I think you'll notice a big change in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I had.
Yeah,
So,
and that's pretty much, all I have. We've got a lot of stuff that's changing, obviously internally. The other big thing is we have our online permit system is now functioning. So that's a big change, actually, very big change. It's been like the season of change for Mary the last few weeks. Mary had to change her browser and her email system in the same 2-day time period. And then we went live with the permit system here a few weeks later, and then Sandy started around the same time. So it's been a lot of just different stuff. But it's all good changes. I think we're going in the right direction. And we'll see what happens with the housing market. We've got multiple subdivisions now going before the planning board, which is only going to add to the issue that we're experiencing. But it's really all market driven. So the bubble could pop, which it's not going to anytime soon, especially with the materials like you mentioned with cabinets. Stuff like that is keeping the brakes on. So it's not like everything's just going all at once and then it's going to pop. There's a governor on it essentially. So we're going to be in this position for a while. So I think that the code enforcement and planning department while it's all under one umbrella right now. It might not be in the future, but we'll likely be adding more staff, probably for July 22 is my guess, just to try and keep up with the growth, really. So, but we'll see. You know, you guys have some stuff coming for the next meeting. Obviously, now that we've got a tabled application, we've had a few others come in. So you guys are staying busy, which is always interesting. And planning board is staying busy. So we'll keep you updated on how things are changing.
Anyone else have anything before we adjourn?
I would just say, Len, if Alex had that suggestion of supplemental information for the ordinances, I mean, I think that's something they can pull together. I would definitely be in
Something
favor,
we should have.
especially in consideration as another vote on ordinance changes coming up in a couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
do supplements and maybe that makes life easier.
Yep.
But I'm good for that, Len, if that's what you like.
I motion that the meeting is now adjourned. Second,
I'll
please.
second. I will second. Got a bunch, I think.
Thanks, everyone. I know we ran a little long, but we had a lot to cover. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Well, good evening.
Night all.
Have a good night.
Evening. Goodbye, Mary.